Welcome everyone. We at the Stir Gallery are being joined by two very deeply admired professionals in their respective fields. Architect Frida Escobedo and artist Arik Levy. Through this confluence of thoughts across borders, across time zones, and across professions, it really is bolstered that creative inspiration can be found anywhere, at any time, and via any medium. We may sit continents and time zones apart, but our minds come together to draw from these professionals immense wealth of varied life experiences, anecdotes, and insights into their professional journey. I'm Amit Gupta, founder and editor-in-chief at Stir. I'm joined by Pramati Madhavji, consultant and content advisor for Stir, and we welcome you to celebrate this creative collation with us. Going in the alphabetical order of introduction, Arik, an artist, technician, photographer, designer, filmmaker, Israeli-born Arik Levy defines multidisciplinary in truest sense of the word. Well renowned for his crystalline and rock sculptures and paintings inspired by the same. There is no field in the creative design realm that he hasn't worked in and excelled. From product to furniture, lighting, interiors, installation, sculpture, you name it, and it would have the Arik Levy signature on it. Now, considering himself more of a feeling artist, Levy also creates complete environment that can be adapted for different usages. Life is a system of signs and symbols, he says, where nothing is quite as it seems. He feels that creation is an uncontrolled muscle. And might I add that he has been flexing that muscle quite a bit through his recent works. Frida, on the other hand, has a body of incredibly humane architectural work that precedes her reputation. One of the youngest architects to be commissioned for the Serpentine Pavilion in London, her work is nonetheless imbued with a distinct sculptural quality of its own. She has worked passionately in the social housing realm, and she is particularly heartful about modernist architecture practices in Mexico, her homeland. From her sizable body of work, both permanent and temporary architecture, Frida draws from context and time, but has ended up defining her own. She believes that people's emotion and relationships are revealed by the building's design. I now open the stage for Frida and Arik to take us through the OTCs, the accolades, and the challenges. And while they converse with each other, we watch them inspire us. Over to you, Frida and Arik.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation to be here.
So Frida, this is our first meeting ever. I'm overwhelmed and happy that it's happened across borders, definitely. And I leave you to start because you are the star.
Okay. No, I'm not. But you were describing it really well. It seems like a blind date across continents. So that is very exciting, and it's almost very interesting because I feel like now distances and time have really blurred for all of us. Last year was insane in many aspects. But I think one of the things that I think are positive is that we are able to communicate and to share ideas more easily, or at least we have been forced to. And I find that very interesting. I think that is going to open many ways of collaboration and communication. So I feel like the need for humans to connect, it's just like expanding and expressing itself again. So maybe it will be through this channel, but it's still very lively, so I'm really glad to be talking to you. And while I was looking at your work, I was very curious about not only the idea of shift of scales, but also the shift of materials, and some aspect that seems to be like constant throughout your work. And I wanted to ask you, because I'm also very curious on the idea of repetition and difference and what that means to you. And how do you feel that your work has these constant elements, and what is it trying to express when you create different iterations of these repetitions?
Well, I'm dyslexic, completely dyslexic, which is apparently there's in the creative community is about 20% more dyslexic people than in other communities, which expresses the fact that we have gifted or suffered from over imaginary things that happens in our head, and we what I call the uncontrolled muscle again, and so on. Repetition is so I'm logging more into, I think what I do, big part of what I do is techno poetry. So it's both technology or technological or technical, or getting into the molecular level and then taking it from there into poetry and vice versa. So repetition, the beauty of repetition is the binary code, 0 and 1. There's a repetition of these two figures, but the way it is repeated and the rhythm and the juxtaposition of these two creates us in an image talking to each other. It's the same. So this repetition, where people, we talk to somebody and say, that's a fractal, and this is a structure. He thinks about linear repetition, but the linearity in repetition is only in the mind of somebody who looks at it, or at the engineering, the very engineering that doesn't look at what is the connection. So it brings us something, another interesting thing in architecture is that we don't screw anymore, we glue. Now glue has a flexible capacity. So if we look at the body, if the kneecap was glued to the thigh, we won't be able to walk, but it is kind of glued with this cartilage kind of thing. And the repetition that I saw through some of your work, which is at the scale that it takes, reminds me, I couldn't stop thinking about fabric. It became like this gigantic fabric, and something that it appears and it is physically steel and strong and inert becomes dynamic and kinetic and flexible, and could even nearly wrap myself with that material. When I looked at your work, and that's obviously how we have checked our blind date, like a blind date website, everybody check the profile of the other. I thought that there is, without having any similarity, there is a lot of similarity in some of the DNA of what is happening and how it is actually happening. And for me, the world is about people. And that's it. It's only because of people that things exist, and how they exist and the way they exist. And it's only because Permiti and website and everybody who is excited there is that put us together, et cetera, et cetera. So the importance of the presence of people is one thing, but the importance of the action of people is a great motivator to me. So I'm not interested in the finality of what it is. I'm interested in what it's doing. So for me, nothing is static, even if it is casted in steel or bronze or cement or whatever.
I think that's very interesting. And I don't know if you have been reading my webpage or or looking at some of the lectures that I've given, but I always talked about this topic, this idea that architecture is something that, in architecture schools, they teach us that it's permanent and it's static and it needs to be maintained in a very pristine condition. And I honestly believe that is not the case. It's always inhabited and it's constantly flowing. And to me, it's almost like a mineral, like these beautiful, like geomorphic forms that have like lots of layers to it. And it's almost kind of telling a story of their creation. But at the same time, you understand that if you would leave them like that for another million years, they would shift and change. So what we feel is static is just because our perception is too short. And I think just understanding what you're describing through art or through architecture or through music or some other art forms helps us to understand the temporality, not only of the object, but our own. And I think that's part of our job, as creatives, to try to give a window to these other temporalities. That's to me very interesting and very important.
I totally agree, and I had an enlightenment, self-enlightenment, which is was a funny thing. I was reading about the weight of Earth, because all this search for going to Mars, going to this, going to that, search for mineral, bring in diamonds. I had a conference maybe 15 years ago with the astrogeologist searching diamonds in asteroids. Like, okay, but then you figure out that Earth has not changed its weight except the birth of people, because we born more are born than people that die. So obviously we are adding, but we are adding something somehow. But at the end, we are a result of what we eat, right? So, and when you build a building, right? If you make a terracotta element or you cast it or whatnot, it comes from material that came from Earth. So actually, you are not changing the actual mass; you're only transforming it, which takes away this sensation of or this statement of static and dynamic. Because what we do, we are masters of transformation. So if you're building or object or design, whatever it is, it was something else 1 billion years ago, 100 million years ago, or 3 years ago. Earth do not exist. Earth, soil was never existing on Earth. It's a result of all the dead microorganism and the microorganisms that live with it and that eats each other and became a whole world. And this is Earth. It's us. It's all the time us. So this transformation is an ingenious skill that we have, and that skill in education, unfortunately, education needs to follow a certain kind of trail, because otherwise, how can they explain what they do? But this trail is not changing. So it takes about 20 years to install a social law or social habit on a country size. Okay, it takes about 50 years to get rid of it. But coming back to your remark about what we are taught in school, and what we are practicing in life, and I think this is where our role as inspiration, as a demonstration of what trail one could do. For me, school is a toolbox, and with this toolbox, you learn the plier, the hammer, every tool you want to carry with you, being it digital or not. And then it's how you use it, it's how you compose it, and it goes back to the question of the element. It's not what it is; it's how you deal with it, how you compose it, how you juxtapose it, how you inert it, how you make it mix, how you if you step to my studio tomorrow, let's say I call you, let's say we become really good friends, like really good friends, okay? And I call you and say, Frida, look, I have to go. I need you to come in for a week and do what I do, but you do it the way you do it, okay? Or we will say, okay, we will decide to do a switch. I show up in your studio in the morning and say, hi, I'm Frida. And you come in and say, hi, I'm Arik. And so I think that by doing that, we will be able to use our flexibility to move into another mode of function and adapt and take it a step further. And if we think this way, then we stop teaching, giving a lecture in a school or teaching our kids to do not look at anything statically. It's like people say, can I see a picture of the sculpture? I said, yeah, but you're never going to see the sculpture the way it is when you move around it or where it moves around you. It's never going to be this way. This is one static, and a render, which I think is the catastrophe of rendering. I see the advantages, but the catastrophe of rendering is that it's taken all the mysterious And the sexiest part of what we do, which is the discovery, the surprise, the getting together, the initiation of everybody's energy to get to some kind of a further goal into the, but in the render 3 years ago, I saw that little thing here. Why is it not on the? I think our big work is to, I don't know how you feel about it. I see it in the studio, I see it at home with my kids and so on, is to undo this sort of this screw and bring a flexible glue into that, so people do not feel so static about everything, because there's a code, there's a social code, there's a manner, there's this and this and that.
No, I totally agree. And I think that's one of the reasons why we fight so much in the studio for not having to do renderings. I've always felt that it's some sort of an illusion. It's like a bad magic trick, you know, like it's you're setting up a camera perhaps on a corner that does not exist in the building. Maybe you need to take out some of the building so you can have that viewpoint. The sky is never that blue, or at least not in Mexico City. They're not birds flying precisely where you want them to fly. You know, like it's some sort of montage that I feel is interesting for specific reasons, but I agree with you that that is not the way that we're experiencing reality. But at the same time, I feel like nowadays we're experiencing reality very much through the screen and through this idea of flatness, and that makes me worried. I see myself sometimes, you know, just like endlessly scrolling, trying to find images to try to create some sort of narrative in my head, and that is almost impossible. And I feel like we've lost so many other layers, you know, like we see like very quickly thousands of images, but we're not able to create any other sort of narrative other than the visual. We were just discussing last night, my partner and I, how we lost like this kind of auditive memory that we had in the 90s when we were in high school, or, you know, like middle school. Where we remember the time and the emotion that we were experiencing through a song that was playing on the radio, or how someone was dressed, or what type of perfume they used, you know, like, and now it seems that everything is just, okay, yes, I remember your Instagram or your webpage, or all of these visual images that, even though they're very static and almost like have like this weight to it, it's something that is really, you know, like effervescent, like it evaporates very quickly, and there's no memory to it. We don't have physical pictures of our children anymore. We are not able to flip through the pages of a magazine. I've seen kids doing this thing, like pinching with their fingers on magazines, and that is really, really scary to me. Like, where is the sense of depth and of being able to transverse the experience, and not just being like, you know, like through like this mirage that we're seeing on screen. So I'm really curious of what is going to happen, especially because of what you mentioned, like this idea of how we're being shaped in this past year. I think that we have become a lot more visual because we're locked in our homes, of course. So how long is it going to take us to go outside again, be able to be social, be able to experiment space and time and other senses in different ways?
Beautiful. So since you asked a question about material, I prepared something for you without knowing what you're going to say. Okay? It's personal, very personal. Look. See that?
Oh, I recognize that.
That is a building block.
Yes.
In wood.
That's fantastic. In wood. Oh my God, yes. Oh.
This is an oak.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Now, think of that shift of mind, because you would say humans' biggest investment is real estate, right? I build my home is my castle, my home is your home, tua casa, mia casa, blah, 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 blah. This home is a lot. Our castle and this and that and security, family, everything you want. Now, if you build a building in cement, you take building block in cement. If you want to build a building in wood, you need a building block in wood. So I made this project. So in the art world, in my art head, obviously this is normal. This is a new DNA. If cement is the DNA of a building in a solid, hard in cement, then so wood would be the DNA of the building in wood. And I made them. I made about 150, like 2 pallets.
Oh, wow.
I even made the pallet in wood. Pallet are normal wood, but this was a nice wood.
Or the pallet in concrete. You can do the
Yeah,
pallet
exactly.
in concrete.
Then you can't lift it anymore. So and with that, you can build so many things. And suddenly, what used to be so rugged and in a way aggressive brings in the building industry, the dust, the unfinished, the non-real, or the real, but the non-finished feelings. Suddenly it's a piece of wood which is beautiful and it's warm and it's well finished, but it has the form. So form is so indicative to ignite so many thoughts that we have behind us, just like what you said about memory. And it's the same thing as the notion of memory and souvenirs that makes us magazine and take out of our head magazine, personal or collective memory, anecdotes that makes our whole world around us. Actually, art is the oldest thing ever shown through humanity. You see in cave drawings, so you go to the museum, it's art. There's some design, of course, but it isn't about this. It's not about money. It's about the sentimental and the creative values. If you make a bad product or a product which is not successful, being it the reason, it's gone out of the market, right? Nobody buys it. So manufacturers stop to produce it and market it and so on, and it disappears. A building, if it has created, if it is a good building or a bad building, it's a different discussion. I just want to mention that as a thing. The whole society around this live with it every day. Walk up in the morning, see it, coming back in the evening, see it, and we can see it, live with this thing, which is not necessarily the right thing. So long time ago, I took a city map, a simulation of doesn't matter where actually, and the buildings up to about 20 years ago, say 20, maybe 30, there is a similarity in formation. The formation of how, so in a modern place, it's cubes, this cube, that cube, this roof, that roof, and so on. In the more Latin places, there's a little bit more form to it, maybe, or there's a proportion which is different, the height, the relationship to height and depth, and so on. But generally, all of Mexico looks the same, Tel Aviv looks the same, New York looks the same when you have a bird view. And then suddenly, somebody came with a whoop and put it there, and everybody goes up. That looks like this is because by juxtaposition it's different. Now, so you see what happens to the big cities that build all these amazing creative and expressive and parametric buildings and so on. And maybe in 50 years, the whole city is going to be that, and then suddenly somebody's going to come and build a cube. Everybody goes, a cube is going to be the most amazing thing against all this over creative somehow, because we can zoom so much. We can zoom so much on our software that we can indicate so many details and calculate things that we cannot even imagine. We can calculate them, but then it becomes a new kind of standard. So actually, I'm throwing this in between us because the responsibility or the position of the architect and that in that scale is so huge. Of course, the architect who makes his building, he feels that this is the right thing and he gives the right solutions, and et cetera, et cetera. And the promoter is doing the right decision. But we see there's a lot of buildings that do not function.
Mhm.
We see that they don't function, or you walk into them and you're not feeling good. You can't describe it as maybe the proportion or the height of the ceiling, or the way you go in and the way you go out, or the size of the proportion of the window, or what you see outside, and so on. So how do you deal with that?
It's an interesting question, and I think it has to do with this tool set that you were describing in, like in school, or in this case in architecture school. And I feel that like there's this stereotype that the architect is the sole creator of this world, and it's actually a very collaborative discipline. And it's the problem of design is not created anymore. I think that it never was on a desk with a sketch. That was the seed for something, but then that seed needs to grow and to evolve into something else. And I see every time more that the design problem comes from like a financial perspective, a politic condition of the city. So there's we believe that we're designing something, but we're actually just giving shape to something that is already happening in our environment. So we're in the same way that we're using materials. We are also using all of this information, like what does the developer is asking for, what are the regulations of the city, what do we feel the client will want with someone who's analyzing the aspirations of people. And then all of that is put into a recipe that gives a building. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I feel that now in architecture schools, we should be looking at all of these angles, because that is also a design problem. Like if someone is making the regulations and it's not giving you good quality housing or, like urban planning, the problem goes beyond what you can do on your desk. So, and we never see it like that, because we have like a very romantic vision that the creator is someone who is with a pencil or with a computer just designing like beautiful elements. But I think it needs to go way behind that, so we can actually create something that is expressive and that is full of life and that is actually representing the time that we're living and what people want, not what people are going to be profiting from.
And taking forward what Arik was also saying, Frida, and when I was reading some of your notes, you talk about that style is not so important, it's more of a spirit. Now, exactly what Arik said, that on one hand, there is a huge rush within the architecture community to create a statement, to create a style, that this is what my parametric looks like, or this is what my form looks like, this is a representation of XYZ architectural stamp or architectural practice stamp. And at times devoid of what a socio-political, cultural manifesto or a context of the space could be. And you work with, you've talked about you working with basic materials from ceramic to thatched roof to clay. How, given what Arik you were saying and the kind of work, Frida, you practice, how do you alienate spirit from style or style from spirit?
It's a difficult question, because of course we learn as we do. Like we're crafters. So architecture is created through the repetition of doing something. Like you need to test a few things a few times, so then it seems like you're moving towards a specific style. So for example, the idea of playing with this repetition that Arik was mentioning in my work, the idea that you can create some sort of textile that is created by a binary thing. So you can create a lattice or an opaque wall and so on. So we've tested that a few things, and then people feel that that is a particular style, but it's actually trying to test some of the ideas through several iterations. And then there's an issue of what people are expecting, because once you start testing those things out, they start asking for the same thing. But it's like, okay, so it's not a result, it's a process that needs to happen. And that's why I find what you're saying, Eric, very interesting. It's like, how can we play with that idea, you know, of something being apparently rigid or static, and then kind of just shifting something slightly so we can keep learning from that experience, you know, like, so it changes, so it's something new, but at the same time it allows us to have like a, you know, like a smoother ride. It's not like jumping from one next to the other. It's still going through a similar kind of process creatively, but with these tiny shifts you're always learning. And
example, if you have an entrance to a building area, right? And there's a garden, you have a gate, and there's a garden, and there's the building. Normally, classically, being it 300 years ago or now, you'll have a alleyway done, right? This way or that way. Gate, building. This is how you walk, sir. That's how you walk. If you do the same thing and you have 5 or 6 different ways that are starting the same point and ending the same point, different people will walk differently. A kid will go this way, elderly people will go that way, a couple that want to kiss, romantic kiss, will go that way, and so maybe 80% will go this way, I don't know. But it's because of that we all of us are reducing choice because we want to get faster somewhere or get to the result too fast. And what you are saying that are completely associated, this is what happens in the studio. We are in a constant state of experimentation. Constant. I feel pregnant constantly. Even if I give birth, I'm already conceiving 5 others at the same time in a parallel with a fraction of a second difference, but in a completely different taste, a completely different color, the different statics and feelings, and the reason why sometimes I don't even know why. But the construction of society, or the wish to get faster, better, richer, stronger, and all this kind of thing, is reducing the possibility. So one day, very long time ago, in the studio with this computer thing that you mentioned, I told the guys to say, okay, today is a non-computer day. Try it, it's amazing.
were they able to do it?
Come in and unplug everybody. This is sensational. Sensational. People take the pen, they draw back. They'll go to the workshop, they'll do models. They not allowed, even do a week. You can do your emails from whatever, 9 to 9:30, because we have to do them, because it's business, because we have to sustain, because blah, blah, blah. We're not only sitting on drawing, we're managing a business. But then after that, that's it. No computer. It's an amazing thing. And there is a chance to revive. It's like restarting your immune system by fasting. You know this system, you fast for a few days, and then the brain says, oh God, I'm in a distressed situation. I'm not getting oxygen anymore and food and so and so. So I'm gonna have to sink in and log in back into my immune system and boost it up so I can survive. And this is the same thing that happens in creative. So no Instagram, no Google, no blah, 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 no, finish with all that for a week. Sensational. Recommended.
I'll try it. Yes, it's going to be tough nowadays, but as soon as we are able to resume a little bit of a more normal life, I think it would be an excellent exercise.
Yeah, it's something good. So when did you start? Where are you born? Frida, who are you?
Yes, who am I? I was born in Mexico City. I was born in Mexico City. I was raised there. I studied architecture in Universidad Iberoamericana. And I started working right away. I had a boyfriend at the time who was studying on the same grade as I. So we graduated and we started doing a renovation for his family. It was just like something like, okay, so let's do this in the summer, and then maybe we will see what happens, and maybe we will work for some studio, or we will start looking for master's degrees or something. But then we started doing a small house for a friend of ours, and then we asked for a grant to do our research project. So that was like a 3-year period, and then we started working separately. Of course, that didn't work out really well. And I started collaborating with friends, like doing renovations for hotels or houses. I started teaching. I was very young, but I started teaching at the same university. And after 7 years of practicing, which really went very, very fast, I didn't realize where those 7 years went right after I graduated. I felt like I needed a change. There's something about architecture that becomes really demanding because it has to do with, like a lot of resources in terms of time and money, and people try to make the best use out of that. But that becomes also a little bit frustrating sometimes for the architect, because you have to respond to that need, So I started looking for a master's degree, and then I found a new program at the GSD, at Harvard GSD. It was called Art Design and the Public Domain, and it was defined as a mid-career program, which was like, what is a mid? I don't know what the mid of my career would be. I'm sorry?
You're just at the beginning.
I that's what I felt. It was like, this is a long career. So probably the mid-career of an architect is close to the 60s, no? When you're 60 or something. But it was really amazing. It was a program that was not just for architects, it was also for artists and designers. So I met a lot of friends there who were filmmakers, or industrial designers or set designers, and it was a really different perspective. So we started talking about space. It was all about space and how people react and move and leave space, but in a very different way. And to me, it was really refreshing, and it opened the doors to doing so more many things, and also trying to give a little bit of perspective to the work I was doing as an architect. I started valuing again what I was doing as an architect. So I think it's a similar process to what you're describing with fasting. Like you stop doing something, you immerse yourself in something that is really challenging and difficult, that makes you grow, because
Right.
when something is hard or painful, it makes you grow. And then going back with like these fresh eyes and seeing like, oh, what I was doing was working in that sense. I was just not seeing it at the time. So it really helped. And now I have a studio in Mexico City. It's a diverse practice. We do everything from housing to some pieces that could be considered more like art installations or experimentations that have to do more with research. So I tried to stay flexible, because I remember that time of that kind of fasting. Like if you do something repetitively, you probably won't be very good at it. I don't believe in the idea of expertise. I believe in the idea of being curious. So I don't completely trust this idea that you have to specialize yourself in something and then you will be very good at it. I feel that is not the case necessarily.
It belongs to the past. When somebody asks me, what are you specialized in? And I say, I'm specialized in non-specializing.
That's a good answer.
That's my specialization.
Yes. So what about you?
Well, I'm born in Tel Aviv in Israel, which is kind of Mexico City in a different scale. So it has its Latin energy into it, the weather and so on. I'm a beach bum. I'm a surfer, a dyslexic surfer, and
a skater. I just found out.
And a roller skater, and so everything that moved in that direction, that slides and so on, was part of my world. And I started painting at about 14, 15 years old. The first anecdote about this, it comes back to love and life, because we all start something because of a partner, because of a family. So I'm taking a new canvas. I'm 15, more or less, and I'm planning to, the white thing is kind of frightening. So I'm planning what I'm going to do. My mother goes to my room and she says, "Arik, I want this painting." I said, "But Mom, I haven't even started. There's nothing there. Maybe you're going to hate it." And the answer is something I still hear every day. He said, "Everything you do, my son, I love." That's how unconditioned my support is. And it wasn't at that time that somebody loves my work, whatever I do, because I have a great sense of self-criticism, and I use the garbage can a lot, as much as I can. Being it painful or not, so not falling in love every time with my work. But that support was something, because it's frightening to do something new. It's not I'm sure that when you go to a presentation to a client or somebody who expect you to do that thing that he have seen, and you come with something different because you believe that is the right thing, it's birds, butterflies everywhere. Like, it's wow. It's the energy. It's like stage track. You're not before the curtain opens. It's like you're standing there. We are nearly naked, in that respect. So that was that. And then I did a lot of art. And since I did not have money, so it's again Israel is a state of survival, being it because we are in a state of war then and still now. And you have to invent yourself every day. This is the rule of survival. So I needed money and I needed to work. So I started delivering flowers on roller skates because I had no bicycle. And that was for years. I did that. I packed, collected money this way and so on. And then I started, because I was surfing, so I started painting on surfboards. These were my canvases. So that I could paint on a surfboard and sell it and make the money of the painter, which was great, because at the time I couldn't even afford canvas or stocking them somehow. And then I went to so I had windsurfing clubs and surfing and shops, because I loved doing it, and this was all my beach bum life. And then I moved to Europe, followed my girlfriend at the time. Similar stories, fantastic. Love is the strongest cable one can have. And then I was already practicing art. I participated in an exhibition, and I started doing, I was autodidact artist, but started doing also graphic designs, because I knew how to draw, because there was no Macintosh at the time. You couldn't use Illustrator. You wanted to do a logo, you had to draw them. And because you had to draw them, you cannot do 50 just by moving one pixel here, one pixel there, this and that. You had to do the right thing. And after the third, fourth one, you got it. You know where the punctum is, you know where the space on the page, you know what it has to be. You knew it, not because it was laborious, just because you were conceiving in a completely different way. So I was doing that. And then followed my girlfriend at the time, who was a dancer, connected to the dance world. I've designed quite a bit of stage design for contemporary dance. It's another panel of me that nobody actually knows, because I've never been exposing it. And I love it. Dance is the stage is by far the strongest performing art one can ever practice. It's music, it's space, it's architecture, it's lighting, it's human. You can have birth or disappear and appear and so on. Anyway, so I've done many big performances, spectacles, and a little bit all over the world with big dance companies and so on, which is fantastic because it's such an amazing world. I would used to take part of the ballet class with them. It was so funny. And then going to Geneva, following my dancer, I was enrolled to a fine art school. But just before I got there, I said, why would I go to fine arts? Because I needed to get the permission to stay in Geneva. in Switzerland. So I needed to be in a school. I couldn't just come. You know, Switzerland is very tough with these things. So I decided not to go to the art school because I was practicing. And then I discovered Art Center Europe, which was a branch of Art Center Pasadena, the known art, architecture, design, automotive designs. And believe it or not, I was enrolling to car design.
Oh, wow.
And the reason was that for me, car design was the closest to sculpture. All I wanted is to keep on doing my sculpture and not anything else. But then I found it not as exciting as I thought. And then I moved into industrial and product design, because there you really learn about so many new things. You learn to invent, you learn to understand material structures and so on. It's quite a smart practice. And I graduated then, went to Japan, lived there for 4 months. I won in a competition. They invited me. It was one of my most amazing experiences, which still influence me every day. And went back to Europe and said, okay, here I am. But all through this experience, I always practiced. So I always had design practice, always had the art practice, always had the stage design practice. And these things are merging one into the other and influencing one and another. But sitting on the board, on a surfboard at 5 o'clock in the morning, just as sunrise, and being able to close your eyes and feel the surface ondulation and the sun rising, the light hit the surface and rebound, creating the expression of volume, is something that I experience every day. I sculpt with it, I use it, I draw with this, I design with it. It's an everyday sensation, the flotation, the weight, all about contrast, all about juxtaposition of oppositions, actually. And so that has led me into I have to bring something, hold on. I'll show you this picture. Just so persistent. Found it long time ago. Check it out.
Is that you?
That's me. And
That's fantastic.
that must be like 80, 82. Yeah.
Do you still surf?
Yeah, just when you were going to kindergarten, more or less.
Yeah, I was born in 79, so
Yes.
probably.
But started with being passionate and motivated, with endless amount of motivation to discover, not to do. I'm not interested in producing design or producing artwork. I'm interested in the experience of being it. And this is actually, of course, with time you gain more stability or self reinsurance and so on to put your thing there and say that's it, and that's what it is. You like it, you don't like it, doesn't matter. This is what it is, because we are not in a profession of pleasing. Part of it.
When do you feel that happened, or do you remember any particular piece or project where you felt like, this is what I want to do? I feel confident. I feel there's a shift.
It's for me personally, it happened when I understood that first I'm mortal and not immortal. Mm-hmm. That's one thing, which is hard in adolescence because you believe differently.
Yes.
and the second thing is that I'm self-sufficient in that way, that I can always support myself somehow. So somebody had not acquired what I did, which permitted me to buy bread and sugar and milk to survive and pay my rent, then I would go and deliver flowers or go into the kitchen and bake. And I can learn. We are human. We can learn so many things and so fast. We are like, this is an amazing piece of machine. So I never felt the stress or the threat of having to not function the way I think is right. But obviously, when you practice the different fields, such as design is very different than art in many ways. Design has as a mission.
Yes.
You have to bring you have to analyze and you have to give solutions. Architecture has a mission. In most of the cases, the superlative case where you have total freedom of whatever, ever, and if that exists, this is really an amazing thing. Is what I think is fantastic when you get commissions like Serpentine or other, being an architect, a cook, doesn't matter, a bicycle race rider, and so on, is the freedom to experiment is priceless. It's priceless in any way. And that freedom to experiment, I was trying, and I'm still, to give myself this. And what happened to me is that design, I realized that I can design, because I was designing for the surfing industry out of need. And I understood that design is fulfilling a need. I need a fin for my windsurf, then I design my fin and then I ride it. And I think that it's not going very well. And then I changed it and suddenly it went really well. And I could go really fast or carve and this and that, whatever. And then suddenly I understood that this function is something that I can bring. And I've learned myself and taught myself how to do it. And design was faster to sponsor my art, because to live from your own art it's very difficult, because we are doing something which is not existential in the eyes of the artist. I think it's existential. I mean, I think a painting on the wall is existential rather than the wall, unless it's your wall. But so design came also to me, myself, to my world as a mission, as a function. So I enjoy doing it. I could express myself because there's a lot of crossover. There are crossovers, they are different, but there are crossovers. I could use my creativity and my ability to draw, to imagine, to project, to invent, and so on. And that I took that money and ran to the workshop and did a sculpture that I didn't know what to do with, but I had to do it. You don't have to do a chair. It's not something that if you don't do it, you're not gonna feel well. A painting or a sculpture or something which is part of your instinct, you have to do. Otherwise, it sits there. It sits there all the time. But you're not looking for. You also create in architecture in many ways. You have so many buildings in your head. Some of them you don't dare to show. Some of them you're not ready to show. Some of them you're looking for the place to give birth. You're looking for the nest, or for the sponsor, or for the house, or for whatever metaphor it is. But they're there. They're like, you're cooking. I can see that things coming out, in and out. I don't know how you sleep. Are you a good sleeper?
It comes and goes, and it has to do with what you're saying. Like sometimes there are these, preoccupations or ideas, and they just keep on chattering on your head for nights and nights on a row. And then there are these moments of calm, like where I sleep really well. I sleep a lot. So I don't know, like I think it has to do with the creative process, and it's wave, it's cyclical. It's almost like lunar. It's not a straight line. So you have to grow and then recede and then go back again. To be able to go inwards and then trying to figure out what you do. There are many moments of uncertainty, like of self-doubt. I think that's part of the creative process as well. And it's actually something when you start realizing that is healthy, because it makes you question what you're doing to make it better. And if you use that self-doubt or use the trash can a lot, as you were saying, then it becomes something that is a very helpful tool. Also, you have to be aware that it's also possible to bring that little paper out of the trash can and draw on top of it, and it will work. Like it's not the end of the world.
No, the Japanese are saying every flower flowers in its own paste, which I love, and I think it's beautiful.
I would like to come in here. I mean, last 2020 shook, a large I mean, all of us and humanity as a whole got a huge jerk. Um, Given where we are today, is that anything which both of you are searching for?
Something new. It has crystallized everything I felt and thought that I should keep on banging and doing and showing and preaching and fighting for. It has legitimized, just as you said, Frida, that we are doing things in distance and so on. But before it was not legitimized. Now it's legitimized because you have no choice. So this is a mode of survival, right? This reforce ourselves doing things, and we learn doing it, and we're doing it fast. So I think for me, it was the most amazing experience. It still is. I don't remember myself, except from my youth, sleeping in the same house for more than a week, just because we were traveling like mad and moving and doing, and many years ago, to fly from Paris to Milan, maybe it was, I don't know, 1,500 euros. Suddenly it became 75 euros. So I say, why don't you come for a meeting? I say, I don't want to wake up at 5 in the morning to do something that I could do over the phone. And so at the time I would appear rude and non-motivated and unfriendly and you name it. I got all kind of superlative on my character. Today, everybody is so happy about it. It's amazing. So it legitimized things tools or instinct that we have lost, or that we knew that they were there, but we could not use. It gives us, I think, creative people more power of trust from the people we are commissioned from, because I have people contacting me that I've never seen in my life. And I'm sure you have this now, and say, Frida, we want you to do that for us. Is it a private house or being in the building or urban planning, whatever it is, which before you had to go to 5 meetings, bring your books, make a presentation, dance on the table, do I don't know, do Mastara, do all the yoga stuff, No. So I think it's a lesson that humanity doesn't want to learn, because we do not learn from our experience as much, because we have a great capacity to forget, and the great capacity to forget gives us the drive for moving forward somehow. So there's a paradoxal part of it. The way I see it, I think it is absolutely an amazing tool, like a new tool, really like a new tool to learn from. And we can discuss, I can talk about it forever, and we can discuss it forever. But I think deep inside, and I'm not overlooking, I've lost a lot of business. I have 5 exhibitions canceled. I'm standing with boxes, crates and crates of sculptures that were ready, or designed that were ready for any kind of manufacturing or exhibitions or whatnot. But I'm happy about this, because I'm happy about what I do and what I did. And I'm happy about what I created. And I'm happy to know that this will be used this way or another, because what we do is not a matter of the time. It's not fashion of today. It's not the fashion of today. It is something that has an unlimited value. And I think creative people get credit more today, even subconsciously, than they have had before from surrounding the public. And you see yourself, you have 2.7 million visits. How this is a result. I must say that I've been lucky that me and my life partner, Zoe, she's an artist too. We were looking to move away from Paris, because we couldn't deal with a big city anymore, with the stress, with the pressure, with so many things that we did not want to live with anymore, because we had the tools and we were sure we can deal with the situation differently. And we found this place in Saint-Paul-de-Vence where we live, and we moved in November last year, like 2 months before it blasted in Europe, and we didn't even know it. So we found ourselves in an amazing place in the middle of nature, kind of, with a great park, a garden, with a studio that buckled the circle for me, because this place used to belong to a world-known ballet dancer. Built her studio here, so it's sort of connected. Check that out. This is the place.
Fantastic.
Roughly, there's a place for you, Frida, and for you guys. You can come.
Thank you.
To work and hang out. So my life has changed radically from one day to the other. We pulled the kids out of school, put them in the new school. We didn't even know where to buy a carrot here. So we've learned everything. And then suddenly that lockdown came. So I feel it forced me. So I'm lucky or privileged somehow, because I have the place and I don't overlook the people that has less of that. But I think at every scale, it forces us to in a positive way, to affront ourselves. And we have not affronting ourselves in years. We kept on thinking that it's okay to flip through the thing, do that thing that you talked about before, stop looking around us and pay attention to the end, because no bees, no fertilization, no food. That's it. There isn't, it's a yes or yes. There's not a choice here. And everybody ignores that situation. So I think this is a very good situation.
What about you, Frida?
No, I think I went through a similar process. I was also not waking up on my bed at least once a week. So I really needed to slow down and actually be present at the place that I was. But then something started shifting, and I feel that it has to do with this resistance to change. Like we were forced to slow down, and then I found myself spending 10 hours on Zoom calls. And it was like, this is crazy. This is the same as waking at 5 a.m. To catch a plane, and just like being endlessly, like looking forward to the next meeting and the next meeting and the next trip. So it became really fast, really quickly. And of course, like some people at the studio rotate quite a bit. In architecture, that happens a lot. And we have new collaborators at the studio that I haven't met before, like I haven't seen them in person. So we decided to do something recently. We went together for a hike, and this was the first time that I met them. And I thought it was really special, because as one of them described, it's like, I cannot see your faces because you're wearing masks. So I know your face from the screen. Now I'm not able to see you, but now I see your body, like how tall you are, how you move, your physical expression, which is very limited, because when we're seeing on the screen, we're actually looking at ourselves a lot of the times, and we're controlling that kind of gesture, which was not something that we did before. So we're modulating ourselves more. And there was this moment in the hike when we were talking a lot, like we needed to catch up from all of these things, like who are you, where do you come from, what is your favorite food, what are we working on, and so on. And then we went through a field where the guide told us that there were rattlesnakes, so we had to be very quiet and to walk on one single line. And that was a very special moment, because it was like a 20-minute trail, and we were all walking right behind the other in silence through the field. And that was an excellent reminder to me what the purpose of my career or my job is. Like you share this moment with people for a very short period of time. You have to enjoy that. You have to realize that you're being accompanied by them. And then everyone just like follows their own path. So it's very important to understand that little connection, and to be very present through that process. So that was a very valuable lesson for me.
We don't want to hold you back, but we would love to, as we say, cross-border conversation can lead to cross-border collaboration down the line. For all you know, both of you working together on one project.
Thank you for bringing us together, which is I think otherwise we have maybe never met. and this is really good, and this is what is a great value about what you guys are doing. And I think the platform, what I want to suggest with something that I often talk about, which is continuity. And if everybody agree, let's do that for 10 years, once a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
How that?
Oh, that sounds amazing. I love that idea. Yes.
Yeah.
So because the data will stay forever, and because people, I'm not even talking about me looking at it, because maybe I will not, but not even my son or people that are going to live in 100 years, you'll be able to look not at one conversation and then try to find out what Frida became, what Levy became, but keep on following. It's true. It's a lifetime experience that brings, I think, knowledge to others. So I would, if you agree, I'm happy to do it every year, not only for 10 years, but maybe for 20 years or 30 years, and create continuity of content and thoughts. And then it will be really interesting to see who we were 20 years ago.